Poverty cannot and will not ever be eliminated. You can get the best politicians, you can have the best classes, you can have the smartest individuals. You can teach every single person on here about financial responsibility and paying your bills on time, and they are still going to be poor. In fact, what can cure poverty, if you want to call it a cure, right? But what can really eliminate poverty can be done, but it won't, okay? So let's talk about why poverty exists, why poverty will never go away, and what we can do to make sure that we stay on the right side of the poverty line. So keep it locked. It's Crystal with the Cash Compass. Now, this is something that I might have discussed on my channel before, but I have had a lot of more subscribers since then. So I want to kind of revisit this, especially considering people kind of demanding things from our politicians and there being a whole bunch of, noise around politics in general and minimum wage and things like that. So let's talk about how money works. How is money created? Money is created by two entities, okay? The banking system and the Federal Reserve. Anytime money is created in this system, it is loaned into existence. So you can think of our money really as debt, right? It's all debt. So when you go in there and you want a car, when you want a house, when you want a credit card, that money is not sitting in the bank waiting for you, okay? The money is created. Now banks don't have to keep any of your money in reserves, okay? So any money they get, they can just loan right out and then some. And that's very much so what they do, right? So you now wanted a credit card, you now wanted a loan, whatever the case is, and now you have the debt, and now they have money created that came into the economy, right? So now you get that money and you go buy your house and you go buy your car, and now the person that you gave that money to, well, now they have that money, and that's how the money was introduced into the system. Similarly, the Federal Reserve creates money, right? So if the government has that same kind of desire, they want to get into debt to do God knows what, right? I'm really simplifying it because it's a little bit more nuanced than this. They technically can't get money directly from the Federal Reserve. But just to make it simple, they basically issue out bonds, which is basically debt, right? They're requesting money and they're saying, hey, I have this bond. Please give me $1,000. Here's going to be the interest that you can get paid and things like that, okay? So in, a couple more steps, basically the Federal Reserve will conjure that money up out of, you pick a place, okay? And then they throw that into the system. They typically give this money to the banks. The banks will buy these bonds. And now the government has the money and they can spread that around the economy however they see fit, okay? The reason why poverty is always going to exist is because money is basically musical chairs. When you went in there for that loan, you went in there for the loan for like $10,000. So they created $10,000 and gave you that loan. But now you have to pay it back, okay? And if it was only two people in the universe, if it was only you and the person who lent you the money, and there's no other money in the universe, and they're saying, yeah, okay, I'll give you $10,000, but if you don't give me $10,030, I am going to be able to take your home from you, okay? So you get $10,000, you buy the house, but there's no more money circulating, okay? The only way that you can get more money into the system is by borrowing some more money. So you can go back to this person and say, hey, can I borrow another $1,000, right? So now you get $1,000 and now you could pay back that, $300, $350, you could pay that back. And then the whole cycle just kind of starts over again, right? So it's musical chairs. That's a very simplified example. But let's say you just multiply that across the whole damn world, right? And now everybody is getting loans. Every single day someone's getting into new debt, right? But every day we're not printing out the interest also. So it's musical chairs. Who is ever left with the bag, which of course is going to be a lot of people because we have billions of people on this earth, literally, right? So eventually somebody is going to have to either take on more debt or they're going to have to default, okay? And when you default, your house gets taken from you. And now the banks who did not have this money, who did not really have much of a risk to loan you the money, okay? Now they have your house. And now they have pretty much indirectly purchased a property without having to have any real money, okay? Because they created it, they put it in the system, you defaulted, and now they snatched the house back from you, collecting the interest on the way, and now they have ownership of a nice property, okay? That is how the system is created. Unless we are, and even if you could print out the money for the interest too, I think we still have the problem just because we also have savings, right? We have people who make money and then they just keep it too, right? So they're like, oh, I'm going to save this money for whatever the reason is, right? So that's even less money that's going to be circulating the world. And that's called money velocity, right? So when you hear people talking about inflation and things like that, you need velocity. You need money to kind of be moving through hands. And that's exactly how inflation, and this is kind of like a separate, thing, but that's how inflation kind of really ramps up, right? So you could have politicians in here and they could raise minimum wage, they could double minimum wage, they can quadruple minimum wage. It's not going to solve problems. People will blame like racism, That's not going to solve problems. You can even teach people, like I said earlier in the video, you can teach people exactly how to never get into problems, but there's always going to be something out here that's going to prevent them from actually moving forward, right? So the way you can really fix this is to just try to stay out of debt as much as possible, right? When you don't play by their rules, you're not stuck in this hamster wheel of debt, but death too. When you're not stuck in this hamster wheel, you can kind of move a little bit more freer. Now, obviously, you do to a certain extent do need debt, right? Like if I want to own an apartment complex, I'm probably not going to have $700,000, off to the side to buy that thing in cash. So, that's good debt. There are some debt that I feel like you just simply cannot avoid, especially if you're trying to get into business and grow. But if you can, stay out of debt that you cannot really make a profit out of, right? If you have a house and let's say maybe, times are getting hard, you got to go live with your mom and you don't want to default, you don't want to foreclose, but you just simply don't have the money, you can attempt to rent that out. Okay. And they can handle all the other expenses like the mowing of the lawn, You can kind of conjure up the lease and however you need it to be done and have them pay the mortgage, right? So that's debt that you can actually make a profit out of. So really focusing on having that good debt that can actually bring you a return is crucial to make sure you're on the right side of poverty, right? Getting out of debt is so important, and do not think you're going to fix your debt issue by getting into more debt. When I was younger, I had a credit card that I said I was going to, pay responsibly for. And I did for a little bit, but eventually I ran into some different times and I just said, F it, I'm going to go on vacation. I'm not going to work. I was, pretty irresponsible. And then when I found myself like, oh, this is really bad. Like whatever has happened, I've gotten into a lot of debt. Let me take out another credit card because that had, better terms. And I said, I'm going to use this card to pay off that card. And then I ended up with 2 cards that were damn near maxed out. Okay. Big mistake. Do not do that. It's so ugly to get out of. Like oh my God, I'm speaking from experience. It's not a good place to be, right? So try to stay out of debt. Do not use more debt to get into more debt, to clear up your debt. Like it doesn't make any sense, okay? Because you will end up poor. Taxing the rich is not going to solve our problem, right? America keeps on saying things. I think that girl who was the AOC came out with that tax the rich dress. Super performative, okay? You can tax the rich all you want to, but there are loopholes in the tax law. The tax law are written for the rich, right? These people, they hire CPAs like myself to go in and try to find loopholes and try to interpret the laws in different ways, right? Because interpretation is really important. And if you can argue why you took a certain tax credit or whatever, then, it works in your favor. And they know that. So they hire the right people to make sure that they don't pay taxes. So when you're saying tax the rich and that's going to solve all the problems, it's not, because the system is not designed to create everybody being comfortable, right? The system is designed to have losers. You're gonna have a loser in the situation, right? There's never enough money in the world for everyone to pay off their debt. If everybody paid that off on time, there will be people who have lost their homes. Okay, it's impossible. It's impossible because there's not enough money to pay the interest and the principal. And this is obviously maybe hopeful wishing or hopeful thinking, but if we really want a society where people have a better chance, there's still going to be inequities, right? Is that a word? Yeah, there's still going to be inequalities, whatever. But at least we all have a fighting chance. You would need to either not charge interest, which is probably never going to happen, or you need to create the interest as well, right? And then somehow circulate that into the economy too. I don't know how they would do that. That's something you got to think about, right? And then from there, you could teach people, the proper tools that they need to pay their debt on time and do things right? But again, as long as people can save their money, as long as people can just borrow and not have interest being created too, the money for the interest being paid too, there's always going to be some sort of social economic class. So if you like this video, do the right thing and like this video and subscribe to my channel. And then also be sure to binge watch me over here.